Hello there. My name is Chris. Welcome to my channel, Rio Grande Perspectives, where God willing we will discuss monotheism in the three great Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I want to get into comparisons of the scriptures that underlie these religions, as well as the histories around them and the tenets they hold to. I've had the blessing of learning from all three of these religions, and I find that if considered thoughtfully and with a willingness to suspend certain prejudices, they actually comprise one unified message from God to mankind. Now, that's not to say we wouldn't find ample disagreements between most believers randomly selected from a church and another group of believers randomly selected from a mosque. Indeed, we would find many disagreements, seemingly insurmountable ones. I do like to observe debates on this topic, and I also participate in Christian versus Islam discussions online, so I'm very familiar with this. That being said, my own life experience with religion has afforded me a different view of these issues, so that's a lot of why I want to do this channel. I think it says a lot that even though my faith holds such an important place in my life, I honestly cannot find a concise, convenient name or category for my own beliefs. I could make a case that I am a Jew, for I did undergo conversion to Orthodox Judaism many years ago, and according to halacha, that conversion is eternally valid, no matter how far I have strayed from the derech, or the path of Orthodox practice. Although I did have a falling out with Judaism, my time in it has made a lasting impact on my ideas, on my understanding and faith, and on my study of the Bible. Additionally, I can make a case that I'm a Christian, for I do believe that Jesus is the Messiah promised by God in the Jewish Bible. However, I am a committed monotheist. I do not accept in the slightest any notion of the deity of Christ or of the Trinity or similar ideas. I understand these ideas to be Gentile innovations from the 2nd through 4th centuries that are actually absolutely forbidden by the Jewish Bible that Jesus grew up with, and are not supported even by the New Testament. Well, this obviously puts me at odds with most Christian churches which are operating under the doctrines laid out by the councils of Nicaea and Chalcedon. It should be noted that there is, and it seems there always has been, a tiny minority of Christian congregations who are monotheists. These days they mostly come under the umbrella of biblical Unitarians. Now, I do really like the biblical Unitarians, and I applaud the work that many of their top guys are doing with podcasts and videos and debates within the wider Christian world. In fact, I'll probably be promoting quite a bit of their media from time to time on this channel. But I also want to do some things a little different. I think a lot of their media is very heavy on the polemical side, and I think there's room to add some aspects about why it matters. Why does having a monotheistic Christianity matter? What does it do for the believer? What benefits does it confer? And this is something I want to take up very much with this channel. And additionally, it's also fair to say that, my take on things is such that, there are things in my worldview and in my faith that I think a lot of biblical Unitarians would not be completely comfortable with. Namely, I've long had some very considerable doubts regarding Paul, the Apostle Paul, for lack of a better title. And I also really love the Qur'an. And so I know that that's enough to put me on the other side of the tracks, so to speak, with most biblical Unitarians. So the question might come up, well, why not just convert to Islam? Well, that's an interesting question. And the truth is, after going through a few religions, like Catholicism, Judaism, a couple of different kinds of Protestantism, I've learned what to look out for, what to beware of. I'm sort of like one of these jaded guys. You might know somebody like this who has, let's say, been through a couple of divorces, and now they can see certain patterns of behavior or see something in a person from a mile away and, be very guarded. Well, that's me with religion. Maybe I could make the case that I could call myself a small M Muslim in the certain sense of that word that you see in the Qur'an, where it's referring to people long before the advent of Islam, that, it's saying that these people were Muslims in the sense that they were, believers. They were submitted to God. And also my investigations have showed me that what we might call trademark Islam, the basic Sunni or Shia types, they also have their problems. I don't mean any insult to anybody, but I would say that one of the amazing things in my study of this stuff has been the uncanny parallels between the problems of Christianity and the problems of Islam. It's absolutely mind-boggling. In short, what I could say for now is it seems to me like the same devil that has been vandalizing Christianity has been vandalizing Islam. I really hope to spend time on this in future episodes. So what led me to dabble in all of these different religions? I will try to keep this really brief here because I need to keep this video short. I was raised nominally Catholic, had very light catechesis. When I moved out of the house and joined the Marines, that's when I began studying the Bible very seriously. I was just deeply, deeply interested in it, and I checked out a lot of the different study sessions that were on offer at that time, and I eventually settled on the Seventh-day Adventists having the most convincing case for their church. So I was quite associated with them, but didn't become a member. After I got out of the Marines, I met a girl in Prague, brought her back to the States. We were preparing to get married, and as part of that, we had to take these religion classes at the church, and that was when I was first confronted face to face with the Trinity doctrine, which right away I said, this does not sound good. I found it disturbing, but I didn't know what to do with it then. So I went through it at the time, just trying to make things work so we could get married. But later on, when I had a break from school, I approached this subject with a lot of prayer, and I said to God, I want to know what the truth is, and if you show me that Judaism is the truth, I will go there. And if you show me that Islam is the truth, I will go there. And if you show me that Christianity is the truth, then somehow I'm going to have to see how this stuff could possibly be okay. And I went through the Bible, taking my time, looking at every conceivable instance where the nature of God, i.e., unity versus plurality, or multiplicity, if you will, everything about the relationship between God and Jesus, whether they are two different people of different rank and being, or whether they are one and the same being and or person. I looked at everything. I looked up people's lists of arguments for and against, And I said that there's no leg for the Trinity to stand on. This began, a search for, different places to go and what to do with that. But again, for the sake of brevity, I'll just say that at length, my wife and I studied our way out of Christianity and into Judaism. And that takes time. It takes a few years to convert when it's all said and done. So we did that. We spent another few years in there. I think probably close to a decade when it's all counted up. Learned Hebrew, did all that stuff with koshering our kitchen. And anyways, we had a falling out with it. Spent some time just sort of jaded about organized religion. Saw myself as a deist. But, having a young family and also with how crazy the world was, I felt like we need to have some sort of thing to call home, some sort of religious place, even if we don't agree with everything. It was much, much more pragmatic. And so we wound up in a Catholic church. And again, a lot of this had to do with heritage, with, pragmatic family type reasons. It wasn't that I said, well, maybe the Trinity is true. It was more of a thing of, look, everybody has their own things that they're working on and learning, with God's provisions and guidance. And, so what? These guys believe in the Trinity. At that time, I didn't look at it like that had to be a deal breaker. I more just wanted a place to belong. And, the country was going nuts. I just wanted to be able to have good kids for my kids to play with. And just have some people to hang out with. And so I did that for a few years. But then, my life took an unexpected turn, which revived, more focus on these theological truths. And then I had this religious, or I would say spiritual experience that just, hit me out of nowhere. It was a very profound experience. I don't know, it's so personal. I doubt that I would share it on this channel, but I'll just say it just totally restarted my life, and that happened in May of 2024. And so since that time, my life has just been taking up, more the form that it is now, where I'm very focused on prayer and study and relating to God in all of these different ways, intellectually, and with these different spiritual practices. This channel is a result of that. So that's a little background. That's also the name that I have for this channel is related to that experience. Rio Grande, not Rio Grande, but Rio Grande is the name of an old sea shanty that played an interesting part in that experience. So that's a quick background. When I think about what it means to explore a religion, I find that for me it bears a striking resemblance to learning a language. In a sense, religion and language are extremely similar. You could even describe religions as just so many languages that are out there between God and communities of human beings. I myself have had the pleasure of learning several languages in my life. German, Russian, Polish. I've learned religious Hebrew as a part of my conversion to Judaism. Lately I've been studying Turkish and Arabic. One of my goals is to learn Arabic as well as I know Hebrew, so I can, read the Quran with that same sense of, feeling at home with it and confident in it, and, knowing what I'm reading and not relying entirely on translators. As many of you will know, the first foreign language you learn is really, really tough. For most people, it's their first time looking at language analytically and seeing its component parts, like grammar and syntax and orthography and morphology, conjugations, declinations, slang. It's very eye-opening and overwhelming. And usually the study of a foreign language causes a person to then go back and look at their native language in a whole new way. They understand the mechanics behind the things that they had always taken for granted ahead of time, prior to that time. Additionally, the linguistic concepts that a person grapples with in learning their first foreign language and the insights they've gained in that process emerge as perennially helpful tools in learning all subsequent foreign languages. So let's say, for example, you're an American guy learning German. So you've got now 4 grammar cases, which can be tough if you're not used to that, and you struggle along with the different orthography and whatnot. But if you stick with it, it changes you. And then, let's say you go on to Russian. Now you have 6 grammar cases, a different alphabet. Just now you're really cranking up the dial on difficulty if your starting point is English. And it's in a totally different language group. Russian and German are not related. But you already sort of know what to expect. You know what you need to do in order to be successful at tackling this language. You know now about grammar cases and conjugations and declinations. You know what to keep an eye open for. You've learned how to learn, and that is the heart of learning. So I took my experience in converting to Judaism, which is a big deal. You got to get a new kitchen, basically, your new pots and pans, and you get a new language and new prayers, and you get Sabbath, and you get Yontif, and you get, most importantly, a new mindset. And so I applied that to re-examining Christianity and later examining Islam. And this is very similar to learning German, and then the learning of German led me to see English like I'd never seen it before. And it also prepared me to take on Russian because I had begun to learn how to learn languages. So in a similar vein, I learned a lot about how to learn a religion, how to relate to it, what are the core issues involved. One of the things that many people get stuck on is viewing things in terms of dry truth propositions. You see this in most of the debates, and the worst thing about this is that so many of the truth propositions are not even true. They're fallacies, built upon fallacies. It's like if somebody asserts, well, Jesus must be God because if God didn't die for your sins, then there's no atonement. And I hear stuff like this, and it makes my head spin from all the error. It's compound error. But as you know, a lot of people are convinced that they have to get on board with such things, or else. They can't possibly make it make sense or show you where the Bible says this, but they must repeat this and similar mantras because the alternative, in their understanding, is damnation. So, my experience in all of these religions goes beyond the comparison of truth propositions. I've always been interested in the real blood and guts of the religions, so to speak, and how it relates not only to my rational mind, but to my own blood and guts, to my felt experience of life, to my own issues, to my problems. I've long been very interested in the psychological aspect of religion. So in looking at these religions, I've sought out, well, who are their main guys when it comes to psychology or self-help or life coaching. So I've spent, without exaggeration, many hundreds, I think it's safe to say over 1,000 hours of listening to podcasts on, licensed psychologists that bring faith into what they do, from Christianity, different guys too, Catholicism, Protestantism, Islam, Judaism, because religion has to say something to us about our mental health as well as other things. So I'm very curious, what are the common vulnerabilities that you find in a Muslim's faith as compared to the usual vulnerabilities in a Christian's faith? What are the most pressing pastoral burdens for priests, rabbis, pastors, and imams? I am very interested in the topics of spiritual bypassing and distorted God images, and that is something that I hope to spend significant time on in future episodes. I also hope to use this channel to dig into some of the things that are just plain interesting in the history of monotheism, to simply appreciate the many amazing elements of the Bible and the Qur'an. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you will get something valuable from this channel. May God bless you.